Chapter 5, Caged Bird. Okay. We talking about our girl or Magnus, or both? Well, it'd be birds plural, I guess.
First guard, Team A here. All quiet on our end. Everything is quiet on my end as well. As of now, things remain peaceful. The gathered protesters are adhering to guidelines. I suspect the safety department will manage on their own. Team A, if things are quiet where you are, get yourselves to Somerset and Chalice. There's a group that started marching. Safety department reports some throwing of objects. Charming. We'll head over. I have a small area to check on too. If everything still seems calm after that, we'll meet up at Eildon Hill and head back to the tower. Level 3 teams, stay in place as backup support. Your replacements will come within the hour.
There was a chorus of Rogers and affirmation before the comm channel went quiet. Vaughn gave me a faint smile.
Looks like we're almost done for the day. Hopefully things on Somerset are fine. With luck, it was only one person being a pain.
I just realized it did not, hit me until just now. I'm like, wait, our girl's actually out in the field already in Chapter 5. It took ages in Ari's route, but she's, in it already with her. It doesn't sound like it's a particularly dangerous situation, but the council seems more eager to show off the queen early instead of trying to keep her hidden. Very, very interesting. With luck, I didn't want to get over there and find out a riot had broken out. I didn't think I could handle that just yet. Though the idea of a riot in Braceil, Endgame City, was mind-boggling anyway.
The intersection Caleb mentioned isn't far. We'll walk.
Understood. She left my side for a moment to speak to the SD officers nearby to tell them we were moving on. Close to where I was standing on the footpath, a large group of protesters were marching through the streets. Some cast curious glances my way. Most ignored me as they chanted. The air was almost crackling with energy. I kept my sphere bound tight to myself, blocking out the intensity of their emotions. As Ari had said, they were staying peaceful, but that didn't mean the situation wasn't emotionally charged. Above all, I worked to maintain a calm, professional outward appearance. I'd been nervous when the day started. It was my first assignment, after all. The protests had been large, sometimes intense, but calm. That had done much to steady my nerves. And I'd spent most of the day as little more than a quiet observer while the others worked.
Let's go.
I followed her, casting a last look over my shoulder before scurrying to catch up.
How are you holding up?
Oh, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Still a little shocked at having been sent out today, but it hasn't been as bad as I thought.
This isn't the greatest first assignment, I guess. Not the worst, either. At least we didn't travel far. Seems like staying in Braceil for your first time out might be a little reassuring.
I suppose that's true. I didn't expect such a rapid escalation of tensions on Syrah.
It's been building for a while, though it could turn into a proper revolution this time. The push for independence from the Triad is significant this go-round.
Okay, the Syrah mines, yes. Remember that, and the revolution. Yeah, being exploited, and the treatments of the miners is the main focal point. Okay. Good, good.
As long as the protests here on the surface stay peaceful, that won't be something you need to worry about.
People aren't shooting at me yet, so there's that.
No one is going to shoot at you today.
Just throw bottles and rocks. She gave me a disparaging look. I held up my hands, laughing a little. I also doubted it would get that bad either. At least it hadn't so far. But joking helped me stay calm.
None of us would have agreed to let you come out if we thought anyone was going to do that.
She said it as if their objections had swayed the council. They didn't agree for me to come out at all today. They just gave in. As did I, when it became obvious it was the only choice.
We'll have to cross at the intersection ahead. I'm going to put up a shield corridor to be on the safe side.
Says the person who reassured me no one would throw things or shoot at me.
I never said they wouldn't be stupid enough to try to tackle you. Or, hey, just hit on you or something. You're pretty cute in that uniform.
I know full well you're not putting up a shield corridor to protect me from amorous types who want my contact information.
I would totally do that. One of these days, Caleb is going to convince you to go clubbing with him.
Oh? He's a clubber?
Interesting. And when he does, I'll be right there with my shields keeping you safe from anyone who wants to get too weird on the dance floor.
I don't know whether to look forward to it or be horrified, though I struggle to imagine Caleb clubbing.
You have no idea how fun he can be when he loosens up.
I look forward to it. Fun is not a word I associate with him at all. She grinned at me.
You just need more time to get to know him, that's all.
I'm working on it, but it's hard to do that during training. This is my first time even leaving Cor Solaris, and it's on assignment. Chanting from the protests grew quieter after Vaughn and I crossed into an alley on the other side of the street. Does Brasil see protests like this a lot when Endgame gets involved in situations? Or neglects to get involved, as I guess is the case here.
Endgame enjoys a lot of community support here most of the time, but Syrah is a special case. Everyone has strong opinions about the colonies.
You'd think they would have expected Endgame to stay neutral in the conflict. You always have in the past.
We always have. It's we now.
Fine, fine. We. It was you during all the past issues.
I suppose that's fair.
Besides, we're helping civilians caught between the government and the insurgents. You'd assume that would be enough. Did they expect us to side with the colonists and go throw down the government?
Some of them clearly wish we would. And the rest are mad because we have to step in and investigate the rumors of Esper mercenaries. It's not even something we wanted to do.
You really think the dissidents are hiring ranked Espers to get the upper hand?
Syrah's a haven for unregistered Espers. They may not have to hire them, but if the Triad can frame it as a problem, they can rope us into the conflict whether or not we like it. Given the new Declaration of Independence and how close they already came to overthrowing the provisional government, the Triad's pretty desperate.
And here we are, caught in the middle. Neutrality hadn't gone over well at the start, and now the investigation was being interpreted as Endgame taking the Triad's side. All of which had led to my unexpected first assignment to monitor things as people began marching in Brasil to protest Endgame's actions. I had a feeling it was a step down from the guard's normal missions, but someone thought it would be a good chance for me to get my feet wet. So here I was. When Vaughn and I arrived at the target location, we found a small crowd of protesters having a semi-face-off with the safety department. Hey look, it's the cafe that blows up. I wonder if it blows up again in this route. No one was throwing anything, though. Police and protesters were on opposite sides of the street while protesters chanted. But even with my reverse cage in place, I could feel the uncomfortable drum of anger beating against me. There was a small team of Endgame agents between the two groups. Some of them were speaking with protesters in quiet voices. It seemed like things were simmering down since before we arrived.
There's another team out of sight and on standby, it seems. We'll just hold back for now. No need to get involved in a situation that seems to already be over. Reinforcements might also stir things up again.
We weren't quite out of sight, and our white uniforms stood out, but no one had noticed us observing yet. I'm still surprised there's so much support for the colonists here.
You shouldn't be. Many people worry about how things are up there. Don't you have a brother on Syrah too?
Yes. And we worry a lot about him, but I doubt everyone in Brasil has a brother on Syrah.
Some people just want a cause to support. Others don't need a situation to be personal to care about it. And if you're going to protest Endgame's stance on something, Brasil is the place to do it. I know you don't like the intimidation element of our lurking around watching, but sometimes it's good to remind people who they'll be dealing with before they start breaking windows and setting fires.
The important thing is to create a system where people don't have to break windows and set fires to feel heard.
Touché. But that part isn't our job.
I know. But your council is bad at listening to people who are inside Endgame. I can't imagine how they are with people outside.
You'd be surprised. Our council is much more inclined to make sure the public has a favorable view of us.
I like that Vaughn has to keep correcting her. You're part of this now, girl. Caleb's voice crackled over the comm system, interrupting our conversation.
How are things on your end, Fawn? Everything's fine here. Things are calm. No one is instigating anything at the moment. Then it's time to head back to the tower. Our shift is over. Meet us at rendezvous.
I let out a soft sigh of relief as the connection was cut.
Looks like that's it for the day. At least for us. We'll meet up with Caleb and Ari and head back.
Thank goodness.
You look beat.
We got an early start, and there's been a lot of walking since we separated from Ari.
We'll have to focus on getting you able to teleport then.
I'm confident I can do it, but I have a feeling I'd throw everyone into panic again if I tried. And Ari is too methodical. He wants to work on my sphere expansion and focus more first.
Doesn't hurt everyone to panic a little sometimes.
Yeah, tell them that when you're the one getting lectured.
Oh, trust me. I've been lectured. Many times.
This is why Ari tells me I shouldn't let your bad habits rub off on me.
Ari's just jealous you like me more than you like him.
Sure. I was glad we were heading back. It had been a long day, one I'd never have imagined a month ago, not even a couple of weeks ago. To already be doing missions with only a few weeks of training. It showed how eager the council was to have their new queen up and running. That they were still rushing me caused a swirl of anxiety and frustration in the pit of my stomach. Everyone assured me my neuro enhancements meant my progress had been quite dramatic once I began training, and my abilities were stronger than most new recruits because of my age anyway. But I was still woefully inadequate compared to most rookie agents, as Caleb pointed out when we'd got the assignment. For all the good it did. It was nice to get out of Core Solaris for a change, but I wished I could have first seen the city when not on duty.
There they are.
We had come around a corner towards the rendezvous spot for Caleb and Ari, and the two of them were already waiting. Caleb gave a curt, impatient hand wave to Ari as he started towards us.
Look at that. Still in one piece. And you didn't even toss any buildings around.
The day is young, and we're surrounded by likely prospects. And the more you bring it up, the more tempted I am to try. I like that Ari's like, please, no. Last time I only partially knocked one down. This time, though...
Kindly refrain from fighting on the street. I'm astonished the two of you don't get more than enough of that back at the tower. I agree. No fighting. Way too difficult to get popcorn and a comfy seat out here. Cute. Come on, Ari. Let's get back. Queen's role in this assignment is over for the day. The council can sleep well knowing they threw a newbie on the streets and nothing interesting or dangerous happened, I guess.
Caleb was even more frustrated than I was about the too sudden assignment. And he complained about it too. Loudly. At least I didn't feel alone in it. But he was right. My role in it all was over for the day. We all took position close to Ari, and... we were back at the tower in an instant. Not even a shred of nausea this time. I was already used to the world-twisting nature of Ari's teleportation. The first jump was the worst one, just as he told me when we first met. Felt like he forgot to teleport my adrenaline with us, though. All my remaining energy drained away as soon as we were back. It was a relief the room was currently empty, because I dropped into one of the nearby chairs, letting out a disgraceful yawn. It was 13:23 according to the system clock. Almost time for dinner, but not nearly late enough for me to be this tired. I bet my legs hurt tomorrow from all that walking. The tension that had been building in my shoulders all day evaporated, leaving me wanting to curl up with a cup of tea.
I hear you, girl. My legs are hurting like crazy.
You too?
Hey, they're only half cybernetic. The fleshy bits aren't happy with me after all that walking. Gonna have to have Mara do some leg massages for me tonight. And have you check some of the internal padding. Feels like something is rubbing inside and causing more pain around the connectors.
It's a relief to know it's not just because I'm out of shape.
Want to clean up and meet in the lounge later? Maybe have dinner with me and Mara? I mean, these guys can join us too, if they want.
I laughed at the look of mock offense on Caleb's face and spoke before he could say something snide. It was a nice offer, but if Vaughn's legs were already hurting, I was sure she wanted to go home and rest rather than babysit more all evening. I think I'm going to stay in tonight. I also want to get the report out of the way and rest for a while.
Need one of us to stop by and show you how to fill it in?
Ari showed me the form this morning. It's not that difficult. I'll manage.
You need to spend some time winding down too. Don't forget that part. Today was practically a tea party for the rest of us, but it was your first time out. Take some time to decompress.
I have a message to write to my family. That'll help me wind down. Magnus was still ferrying messages back and forth on the sly, but Vaughn and the others already knew about it. Yeah, I mean, okay, great that they know about it, but maybe you shouldn't talk about it in, like, open areas. I imagine there's probably... If they were going to monitor you in your room, I'd imagine, like, the open areas are also monitored. So maybe don't say it too loudly in those areas. I'd had partial access reinstated, but only as much as the council figured I needed for missions. Basics like my clock and a map function, and internal messages. Caleb set a hand on my head, giving it a gentle squeeze. A gesture that was a little playful and a little reassuring. Very brotherly. Well, that's gonna change one day. I smiled slightly. The nice guy's side reared its head on occasion, for sure. Thanks for worrying. I stood and stretched, heading for the door.
Send me a note if you change your mind. You don't have to be an overachiever and get that report done right away.
I won't overdo it, I promise. I was smiling by the time I left. The way they hovered was almost cute. Especially Caleb. Imagine my surprise when I learned all that grouch was only a cover for his true nature as a mother hen. Who could have foreseen? He wasn't as bad as I thought at first. He had even apologized for how rude he'd been that first day. Sort of. He wasn't letting me live down knocking a building on him, though. But it was becoming more of a joke between us. I never could have imagined having an inside joke with Caleb, of all people. We bickered a lot, but there wasn't much heat in our arguments anymore. Vaughn and Ari were in on it most of the time, teasing us about the arguing while knowing we weren't even serious. I hadn't expected to establish a true rapport with them all. I thought the overt friendliness was just about following orders to make me like it here. But no. It was genuine, and that meant a lot. The Council's blatant disregard for my safety and readiness, on the other hand, the focus on treating me like a weapon they were desperate to have operational versus extending any care to me as a person, sometimes it felt the others were trying hard to make up for that by being extra caring. They couldn't make up for the Council being what it was, but I still appreciated their efforts. I was glad they were the Queen's Guard and not others. I just hadn't yet found it in me to be glad I was the Queen. Back in my flat, the first thing I did was zip myself out of that stupid uniform and strip it off. Normally, I left my clothes in a heap by the door, but this time I took care to pick it up and at least semi-fold it before draping it over the back of a chair. It felt wrong to leave it lying around, and if someone else saw, I was sure to get a frown of disapproval. Free from the constricting clothes I'd been sweating in all day, I went to the kitchenette for some water, flicking on the news reports. It was another lifeline to the outside world that had been restored at last. But the reports were all about the unrest on Syrah. There was some footage of the protests in Brazil as well. It wasn't surprising the topic was dominating the news cycle, but now the news just reminded me of work. I shut it off and went for the shower I'd been craving instead. But I did make a mental note to ask Mum how Oliver was doing later on, after writing my mission report, because if I left that hanging over my head, I'd never be able to relax. Shower first, though, then food. Then... Excuse me. Then relaxing for a while, and finally sleep. Except that I hadn't expected not being able to sleep. The shrimp looks really pretty at night. My body was tired, my mind exhausted, but when I laid in bed, the sleepiness evaporated. Sounds like a great recipe for going for a walk in the garden. Every time I almost dozed off, I'd remember walking around in the city. I would think about protests, think about Syrah, and I'd be awake again replaying the mission, thoughts racing. Eventually I got out of bed because feeling exhausted while being unable to fall asleep made me want to scream into a pillow until my throat was raw. And that couldn't be good for getting actual rest. I quickly discovered sitting on my sofa staring out at the city lights wasn't helping either. My eyes were heavy, but my mind couldn't shut off. I hate nights like that. And now, in the dark, looking out at the beautiful city, protests had died down and there were just endless city lights beneath the dark sky. I couldn't keep the melancholy from creeping in and bringing with it thoughts Dr. Sosky would have deemed pointless. I remembered what Vaughn said about becoming obsessed with the future, but more than anything, I was desperate to know what was ahead of me. These days, the constant existential moping gave way to occasional excitement, a familiar sense of adventure that would rear its head. While here, there was a possibility of going to places I'd never imagined getting to visit. Delphine, New Terra, even Dione. But here at 2 o'clock, isolated by the cold beauty of the city lights, I just felt alone. When had the sort of thoughts that kept people up at night ever been anything but fruitless? Didn't stop them from keeping us up anyway. At about 2 in the morning, I gave up, got dressed, and left my flat. I didn't have a destination in mind when I decided to go for a walk. Maybe the garden, maybe the lounge, though I expected it to be empty. I just needed to get my head out of that endless loop. It would be easier to do that elsewhere. Corsalaris quieted down a little at night, but was never silent. Lounges were empty. Hallways had fewer people. There were still teams going out or coming in at all hours, though. I wondered if there was a late-night cafe or something open downstairs. The lounge galleys were closed this time of day. But I needed somewhere with lights and people. If not here, then maybe somewhere else on the grounds. That was my thought as I was passing the training room, and realized there was someone there. From the hall, I could hear the quiet, repeated thwap of someone hitting one of the punching bags. Alright, are we getting our training CG? At this time of day? Curious, I peeked inside, not really expecting to see anyone I knew. Oh! I like the messy bun ponytail thing. That works for me. Yep, that works. Definitely not expecting to see, of all people, Magnus Ulrich. I had never seen him in the training room. Ever. I just sort of assumed his was a desk job. He never went into the field, so was physical training even required like it was for everyone else? For a moment, I hovered near the door, watching. His hair, normally kept in a loose braid, was tied into a messy bun. He wasn't wearing the usual glasses, and, of course, wasn't wearing his usual white suit or uniform. It was odd seeing him wear something else. I also couldn't help but notice he was far less muscled than both Ari and Caleb. Oof. Not that I expected everyone to have Caleb's biceps, of course. Girl, you've been focusing on Caleb's biceps? My goodness. Whose route are we on again? Well, we always gotta go affectionate, right? Right. Okay, we made it to the affectionate part of the route. Delightful. I stepped inside the room, figuring I could at least say hello. I was curious, and I needed a distraction. Magnus immediately stopped and looked over his shoulder at me. I was gonna say, he probably knows that you've been there watching him for a while anyway. I was wondering if you were going to just watch or join me. So he did know I was here. I was on my way to the garden. I didn't think I'd find anyone training at this time. Especially not me. Your words, not mine. Though I admit I haven't ever seen you training. I do it late at night because I don't have time otherwise. If I show up during the day, others bully me. It'll never cease to amaze me that the others bully the top-ranking agent like it's nothing. It's always been
This way.
His smile vanished midway through that sentence, replaced by an odd frown. He smiled again at me.
Besides, being the ranking agent doesn't mean much at this level. Everyone on the first guard is more or less the same. You know our command structure isn't that rigid.
That was true. There was a level of seniority, but Endgame didn't have a well-defined internal command structure between individual agents. It was more team leader-oriented.
And what about you? I don't see you at this time normally.
I was just having trouble sleeping.
And your first instinct was to come beat up a punching bag? That's surprising.
As I said, I was going down to the garden. But when I realized someone was here, I was curious.
There's an old Earth saying that curiosity kills the cat.
I'm not a cat. And I don't think you're a murderer, unless you have a secret past I'm unaware of. Magnus? Okay. I was gonna say, like, he probably has a secret past. Everybody's got a secret past.
Many people here have a secret past. If not an entire past, then secrets of some kind at the very least.
So you're saying I should assume you're a murderer?
No, I'd prefer you didn't. Though sometimes it feels...
It feels? Sir? What are you getting at? He trailed off, then shook his head. He opted not to finish that.
It's not good if you're already staying awake at night. Newbies should be able to tuck themselves into bed and spend the night having sweet and happy dreams.
You say that as if insomnia and nightmares are chronic problems for seasoned agents.
What if they are?
Then I guess I'll fit in better than I expected. I always tend to have trouble sleeping when I'm stressed. Exam times were a disaster. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt your training. I should probably let you get back to it.
You're not even going to ask me to join you? And here I thought you might enjoy spending time with me. Turns out all those visits to my office were just to use me as a messenger. Well, being used by you isn't bad either, in a way.
I rubbed my forehead, both amused and annoyed at his constant attempts to get a reaction from me. Do you want to join me?
Do you want me to join you?
Confident or flexible? Yes, I do. You know what? You can play this game. Do you want to join me? Do you want me to join you? Well, I mean, it's fine, only if you want to. Well, it's only if you want me to. Well... Will these two actually ever leave this place? I gave him a teasing smile. Well, I'm not opposed to it.
That's not the same as wanting it. But if you ask me nicely, I might join you.
I knew it. On one hand, his saying that made me not want to ask him nicely. On the other, I got the feeling he didn't expect me to do it, and that made me want to surprise him. I moved a little closer to him, possessed by the extreme desire to give him a little taste of his own medicine. Exactly that. Dang, girl got bold. I set a hand on his chest and gave him the most owl-eyed look of innocence I could muster, letting a hopeful smile play on my lips as I looked up at him. I'd be thrilled if you joined me, Magnus. Please? Yes! We got the blush, let's go! Amazing. The startled expression was well worth the effort it took me not to burst out laughing. Especially when I realized there was a suspicious pink tint creeping into his face as well. Look at that! Look at this face. Girl knows what she's doing. Man. The surprise was gone in a flash as he half turned away, his shoulders shaking in amusement.
I suppose I ought not to tease and not expect to get teased in return.
He looked back over his shoulder at me, grinning.
And how could I possibly reject such a sincere request? Wait here for a moment. If I don't change now, I'll never remember to come back for my clothes.
He gave me another amused smile as he disappeared into the dressing room. Wow. And he must have flown through changing because he was back in only a few minutes wearing casual clothes, his hair loosed from its previous bun. The eagerness in his step was almost endearing. I hoped I didn't regret this, but then... he was always good for a distraction.
I didn't expect you to ask me to join you.
I got that feeling.
Is that why you did it? To prove me wrong?
Maybe a little. But that isn't the only reason.
Oh? You mean you wanted to spend time with me then?
You don't have to seem so surprised by that.
There aren't many others who do.
They don't want to? Or you don't want to? Very astute. He gave me a long look, then chuckled softly.
You're far too perceptive at times.
Maybe you're just too obvious.
Maybe.
Which begs the question, why did you say yes if you prefer to be alone?
How could I not? Spending time with you is more interesting than spending time alone. In my usual day-to-day monotony, you always, shall we say, bring a measure of unpredictability. I enjoy it.
I can't possibly be more unpredictable than some of the other things you see on a day-to-day basis. I mean, wasn't there a relic-based situation not long ago? Aren't relics unpredictable by nature?
It's not the same when I'm simply watching it from far away. In those instances, I feel like little more than an observer. It's nice to be reminded I'm a part of the world as well.
I gave him a sidelong look. I suppose it was natural to feel that when he was cooped up here so much of the time. Given my situation, I was starting to understand that feeling.
What's that look for, Morgan?
Nothing. I was just thinking how different it is seeing Endgame from the inside.
We are quite adept at keeping a pretty mask up for the public, aren't we?
I guess most groups like this one are.
Is that why you're up so late struggling with insomnia? Contemplating what a disappointment we all are?
I don't know that you all are disappointing. And it was also a stressful day. Sometimes it's difficult to shut the mind down. My thoughts are racing, and... I trailed off, not sure I wanted to air my grievances to Magnus, of all people. Though he had, strangely, been very understanding since my arrival here. Nevertheless, it felt odd confiding in him.
Can't quite relax, then. Oh! I know the perfect thing for this!
He took my hand and started striding back the way we came, fast enough I struggled to keep up. Magnus, where are we going?
We're making a detour.
I've noticed. Where to exactly?
You'll see.
Why am I suddenly afraid?
Because you lack the mental fortitude to handle minor surprises.
That was a rhetorical question?
Was it? My mistake.
Magnus led me to a stairwell, to my surprise, and from there up one level to another hall. Though all the halls of the Endgame headquarters were similar, I knew exactly where we were. So when we arrived at a darkened, empty lounge, I wasn't shocked. But what were we doing there?
You keep watch.
It's 2 in the morning. Who do you think is going to show up here?
Morgan, don't suck all the fun out, please.
Ah, my bad. Shall I hum some theme music while you... Oh. I hope you realize the galley's locked. I hope you realize you're with a king rank. He gave me a smug grin.
Morgan, please. Who do you think I am?
Someone who has better things to use his abilities on than breaking into a kitchen for a midnight snack. Please, if you're not going to abuse your powers in this way, what's the point?
You're wrong.
He disappeared into the galley, leaving me to keep watch. What is wrong with this man? Oh, come on, you grinning though, girl. But I found myself smiling anyway as I listened to the sounds of him rummaging. Then a loud bang, clattering as something fell over. Oh no. What are you doing back? Oh, good grief. He returned at that moment, carrying a small container of what looked like snacks. Midnight snack achievement. Midnight raid of the king and queen. Yay! I couldn't believe I was raiding the kitchen with Magnus Ulrich.
Let's go to my office before someone finds us.
I covered my face, laughing into my hands before finally just nodding in amused defeat. Right. Sure, let's go. This man, I swear. He's a lot of fun. Come on now. Magnus's office had a little kitchenette, something I hadn't noticed before because it was tucked away in a corner behind a door. You know, I gotta say, despite all the stress and uncertainties and everything, I can't remember the last time Morgan actually had, like, some fun like this. Like, there's been enjoyable moments in every route, don't get me wrong, but she's like this is just like such a fun, wholesome moment. It's nice. It's really nice. Also, I'm disappointed in myself because I never noticed how many sticky notes are over here before. They're so obvious now. Oh, it looks like my office. Alright. I'm enjoying this a lot. I leaned against his desk and watched as he made something. What was in the containers he brought, I wasn't sure. I half expected him to set the kitchen on fire from just that much, but he did not. A few minutes later, he brought 2 steaming cups out and motioned me to the sofa. I followed him over, accepting one from him as I sat. Warm milk?
With honey. Ari taught me the recipe.
He laughed a little sadly.
Well, I taught him first, of course.
Ari taught you the recipe, but you taught him for... Huh? Okay. I didn't understand what that meant, as usual. Ari also is a victim of the chronic insomnia that apparently plagues Endgame?
Not as much these days, but when we were in the academy, he struggled more. Back then, he still struggled to control his abilities. With a sphere as large as his, I guess it was hard to keep everyone else out when he was trying to rest.
I can't imagine having grown up here. But I guess if you all went to school together, it's why you seem so close.
Do we seem that way to you?
Of course. Are you saying you're not?
I suppose we were once. But everyone's secrets just build onto themselves, and now... I no longer know.
It's like that for everyone. There isn't a person alive who doesn't have secrets or hidden sides to them. You don't have to be an Esper for that to be true.
Non-Espers are a bit of a mystery to me. Isn't that strange? I can count on both hands the number of them I know. Most of them are on the council. When I think of what most mean when they say normal person, that's my only basis for measurement.
Ugh. I doubt the council is a good measure for what normal people are like.
Probably not. But sometimes I think it would be nice to get a better glimpse of what it's like. Elsewhere. From here, all I can do is watch. I'm sure it's all quite different from the life we live in this famed tower.
It is. But I've learned people are the same no matter where you are. Or who. People laugh and love and make stupid decisions. They get angry and anxious. Have dreams and fears like everyone else.
I struggle to imagine that too. I had no other dreams than Endgame.
Never? Not even as a child?
You've met my mother, a council member. Do you think I could ever get away with wanting anything but this?
What about your father? He frowned again, then shifted so he could drape an arm over the back of the sofa and stare out into the city. For a long time, he sat twisting a lock of hair between his fingertips before he spoke again.
Who knows?
I wasn't sure if that meant he didn't know his father.
At any rate, I was born here. There was never any other path for me to walk down.
Even before your abilities awakened? It wasn't like they knew you'd be a king rank from birth.
identified as an Esper at a very young age. All children here are checked in early childhood. Though it's difficult to detect at that age, we've turned it into a precise science. Like everything else. Everything was planned out for me from the very start. I was raised to become the head of Endgame my entire life. You might say it's what I was born for.
You weren't created, were you? Like, you're not some kind of science experiment baby? Right? Right? Isn't that stifling?
Yes.
As we spoke, it was like there was a gradual shift from his normal self to something softer. Something more real. Like a wall had dropped, the one I'd always been aware of before. How come I never noticed that he has like a little mole here? I'm only noticing it in the CG. It was like seeing a fuller image of the real him for the very first time. I'd always thought that, in a way, he was a very sad man. But the feeling was stronger now than ever. Not just sad, but lonely. Like he was searching for something in the lights out there and didn't think he'd ever find it. Maybe I was just being fanciful, but that was the impression I got.
Do you think...
He shook his head, not finishing that. Yeah, I can't open your heart up completely just yet. We're only in chapter 5, after all.
The others tell me you're adapting to life here, but when I see you not sleeping properly, it worries me.
I know it's not what the council wants to hear, but people don't adapt to massive life changes overnight. It takes months, sometimes years, and it's not always a straightforward process, or a linear one. I keep telling myself that it's normal for people to deal with the unexpected. It isn't as if everyone has the opportunity to chase their dreams. It's not as if I'm the only one whose life took a sudden turn. I guess it's just disappointing to think you were on one path, only to find out you were on another the entire time.
I'm sorry.
He said the words quietly, never taking his eyes off the cityscape in front of us.
I'm sorry we brought you here.
You don't have to apologize for that. I don't know why you blame yourself for these things. Especially when there's no one to blame. Not even the council, really. No one planned for me to be a Queen rank Esper. And the policies about Espers and their role in society, whether or not we like them, were in place long before we were born. Sometimes I regret coming here. But when I also think about trading every memory or relationship I've established here for going back to how things were before, I'm not sure that's a choice I can make either. Sometimes the regret is stronger than the acceptance, but don't blame yourself for that. I hesitated, but reached to set my hand on his where it rested on the back of the sofa. For a brief moment, time stopped, and that wall behind his eyes completely crumbled. A soft smile flickered over his features. Then, with a chuckle, the moment evaporated, and he moved his hand to the top of mine, patting it twice. Yeah, that's a long-term project you've got on your hands, girl. Good luck. You're gonna need a lot of patience for this.
What a wise little queen we've found ourselves.
I brought the cup of warm milk to my lips, taking a sip. It was good. But I don't think it was the honey milk that helped me relax. We talked for a long time after that, Magnus's voice taking on a quiet tone. Listening to him made me sleepy. Not because he was boring, but because he was, to my surprise, comfortable. Did you fall asleep there? He fell silent after a while, and my eyes drifted shut. I fell asleep with my cheek pressed to the back of his sofa, the lights of Bracesil shining below us. I didn't know how I got back to my flat that night, and I was too afraid to ask because I figured he'd just tease me about it. Yeah, probably for the best. None of the others brought it up either, so I could only assume he hadn't told them about it. It was very unlike him, but I was grateful for at least that small attempt to preserve my dignity. bye.